BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward.
Obviously, team's always bigger than yourself, and what the team can accomplish is always going to be bigger than what you can accomplish.
In today's episode, I interview one of the most decorated softball players to ever come out of Metro State University, Denver, Shelby Robb. She has an extraordinary journey, being an All-American, all-academic, and really checks every box that you can think of when it comes to her individual accolades. But ultimately in our conversation, we discuss team, the importance of being there for one another, even if you're injured, even if things don't go your way. And I was truly inspired by her words of wisdom, both on and off the playing field. She's an incredible advocate for multiple organizations around the state of Colorado, giving back to others. I know that this episode and her story will impact you as a listener.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Kollman Gearhart, a former athlete and motivational coach. I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
Well, the BTB Project is back yet again with another incredible guest. The purpose of this podcast is for you as the listener to hear stories of just amazing individuals that I've been able to come across. One of the most incredible resumes that I've seen when it comes to the world of softball. She's a powerhouse both on the field and in the classroom. Relentless drive, resilience, commitment to excellence. She's a 2-time All-American first team selection and an academic All-American team member. She's set records left and right. I just can't wait to get into her story on what makes her tick, and I know it will impact you as a listener. Ms. Shelby Robb, welcome to the BTB Project.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, absolutely. And before we hopped on, it's a small world because I feel like us Colorado natives are few and far between. But you growing up in Arvada, I grew up in Parker. My older brother, he was the girls soccer coach at Arvada West for
That's
a
awesome.
period of time, and also was an assistant coach for the girls soccer team at Metro State, where you spent some time
Wow. Yep.
playing college softball. So I just would love for you to get the listeners up to speed on, we're going to dive into your career and what you did as a collegiate softball player, but what has it been like since graduating and being in the real world, working a full-time job?
Yeah, quite an adjustment. Trying to keep myself busy, and luckily still staying around athletics has helped with that. Never a down period, always busy, always something to do. Lots of great people. I'm very fortunate to work in a department where a lot of the people in that department I've grown very close to and have made some really good friends. So that shift from having those teammates you see every day, it's been nice to be in an office with people you enjoy every day in that aspect as well. So yeah, I was just trying to keep myself busy, find a place where I fit in well and people to support me. And I've been very fortunate to have found that up at UNC.
It was a special place for me, gave me a tremendous amount of opportunities. And it's an interesting scenario because I've been in the experience of being an athlete. I've been the experience of being a coach, helping people become college athletes. And now I'm in this third tier of being a parent who's trying to help my son be a college athlete. And
Yeah.
I just have to touch on it real quick because I have a lot of listeners that are either college athletes or inspiring college athletes. There's been a lot of changes recently with the NCAA and roster
Yeah.
limits and things like that. When it comes to your journey as a collegiate athlete and seeing it from the administrative level now, I just would love for
Mhm.
you to share your take on where are we at with college athletics?
I think transitioning from being an athlete at a Division II school where the spotlight isn't really necessarily on us, the changes that happen at the Division I level either don't take place at the D2 level or take place on a much, much smaller scale. NIL, for example, a lot of Division II athletes aren't out there making hundreds of thousands of dollars like some of those Power 5 athletes on TV, but yeah, I would say the landscape of college athletics obviously is changing a lot. NIL had a big part in that. Conference realignment is huge right now. Things are just changing and it's kind of day to day and you don't know. You could look on ESPN and see that half of your conference is left one day and kind of not know where you stand. And that was the situation the Pac-12 was in this year where they had 3 teams going into this season. So it's a very unique situation to be in and be more in the know than you were as a college athlete and just have a little bit more information on what that looks like. Being a mid-major school, some of those changes haven't really hit us as hard yet, or we're trying to process them and see what our long-term goals look like for us. We're not necessarily gonna be diving headfirst into a new conference and kinda we don't wanna bite off more than we can chew with all of these changes. We wanna really make sure whatever decisions we make will benefit our school, our athletes, and our programs as best as possible.
The word support comes to mind. And when I'm thinking about your journey, I know that you had to make a tough decision coming out of high school, being an Arvada West Wildcat,
Yeah.
probably having some options with softball. I am always intrigued by the old recruiting videos on YouTube. So watching you
Right.
crushing it, playing some second base or shortstop, showing your stuff, and you got a lot of attention from that in your recruiting process. But
Mhm. Yeah.
it's very clear that you had options, and Metro State University was an option that maybe was a little bit unexpected for you. The ability to understand that you had such tremendous support from them, what it was like on your recruiting journey, and what ultimately led to you to decide on Metro State.
Yeah, so I think I have a very big family. Everybody's in Colorado, from Colorado, very close to all my family. So for me, I had a hard time wanting to leave the state. I traveled outside, and there were states where I would be more willing to have played or gone if I was to leave Colorado. But for me, the end goal was to try and stay closer to home. Looked at UNC, looked at CSU, a couple other Division twos. I went to a lot of camps at Metro growing up. I knew who Coach Van was. I had friends who were playing at Metro. But for me, it was always, I don't want to go to school in Denver. I don't want to go to school in Denver. I don't want to be downtown. But they were interested, and at that point, you never wanna say no to anybody right away until you have your decision, so I
Mm.
went out to Metro on a visit, and I had played. I knew what great facilities they had. We play a high school fall tournament there every year. I've played on the field before. I know what that was like, but once we got onto campus and I was walking around and I got to see what the campus was actually like, the programs they had to offer, some more of the athletics facilities and kinda some of the behind the scenes stuff I hadn't seen as a high school athlete. I just started really feeling better and better the longer the visit lasted, and it was funny, I was with my mom, we got in the car after the visit, and she just starts laughing and she goes, "Oh, you have a tough decision now, don't you?" Because I was honestly pretty set on going to UCCS and
'Kay.
did the MSU visit more as like, "Eh, why not?" Like, they want me to, so I will. So she knew right away that I don't people throw around the term dream school, and I wouldn't have necessarily said MSU Denver was my dream school, but it did have a feeling like, "This is a good school, this is a program I wanna be a part of. I can see myself being successful here all around."
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Being a Colorado native, being close to family, it completely makes sense. And the fact
Yeah.
that the coach player relationship was something that you
Mhm.
saw, that's one thing that I'm navigating with my son's recruitment is the
Yeah.
school is obviously, yeah, it's important and the location is important, but the connection with the coach, because ultimately you want to play for them for 4 years instead of 2 years and then the transfer portal.
Right.
So when you think of your head coach, how much of that was part of your decision?
Yeah, so Coach Van has been at MSU Denver for 12 years now, I believe. It's 11 or 12 years, and she was school of mines before that, a school in Iowa. So she's been in Denver, and Colorado for a long time. So again, I went to camps when she was just starting out at MSU Denver, and she kind of had this rep around Colorado as being pretty hard on her athletes, having very high expectations, more traditional in that coaching aspect. So I think that scared a lot of people away, and people didn't want to play for her because of that reputation she had. But when I was going through the recruiting process, I've played for plenty of coaches who their expectations were very similar. They were very hard on us. It was tough. And for me, that's not something I was scared of or afraid of. I can handle getting yelled at. For me, it was, I don't want to go play for a coach who's not going to have expectations and who's going to let the small things slide and not care enough about the success of her athletes and her programs. So that was something with Coach Van that was very that resonated a lot with me was because my values aligned with her coaching style and what I wanted out of a coach was what she had to offer. So I knew going into it, anything can happen, obviously. And once you get on the field as an athlete, they could be a whole nother person. But based on the people I knew who'd played for her and my own beliefs and what I knew of her, it was going to be a very good fit.
That's awesome. And you bring so much to the table. I was able to watch a few times you playing softball, and you just have a composure about you that, from a coaching perspective, I'm always looking at, yes, is the kid talented? Fantastic. But can they represent themselves under immense amount of pressure and stress? And I know that doesn't come out of thin air. So I'd love for you to walk us through, when I say softball and Shelby Robb, like, how in the world did this journey start for you?
Yeah. Well, I've been playing softball, t-ball, whatever you wanted to call it. I started at the YMCA back when I was 4 years old, I believe, and then just worked up through the levels, T-ball to slow pitch to kid pitch, then working into competitive ball in 5th grade, and then from there, I was lucky and I ended up on a team that I stuck with for 4 years, almost 5 years, and the coaches were like I said, they were very tough on us. They had very high expectations, not a coach a lot of people could handle, but for those of us that stuck with this team for those really crucial developmental years, almost every single one of us went on to play college ball in some capacity. D2, JUCO, D1, we had that team produce a lot of success years down the road. And actually, that coach, I'm still helping coach his current team now. He has a younger daughter who he went back and coaches now. So I've been a part of their team as I can find time. And it's been really special to give back because without that coach and that staff, I wouldn't have ever made it where I did. High school, personally for me, didn't love high school ball. Just different coaching dynamics was not something I didn't it was a tougher experience for me, just the way the culture was and some of the expectations or lack of expectations, if you will. And that's exactly what I didn't want in a college coach. So, yeah, I think those years of really tough coaching at a young age and having to grow and develop at a young age was super critical to me being the type of player I was in college, and
Mm.
again, knowing the type of things I wasn't about. I wasn't about the drama, I wasn't about the just the some of the girl stuff that some coaches deal with and play into, and I that was my biggest struggle in high school, and I wasn't about that, and I didn't want to deal with that in college, and kinda that shaped me into a player as well, just what I did and didn't like, and the things that I knew I had higher expectations of myself about.
Yeah, it's sad to hear that the coaches that are good coaches and the cultures that are good cultures are few and far between.
Very.
To be completely honest with you, when I started coaching, my first job was at Chatfield Senior High,
Yep.
and I was hired at 22 years old to coach the girls' tennis team.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a Jeffco at the time had some hardships with coaches in the
Yep.
community. And I remember the AD sit me down and be like, Coleman, you have all the tangibles to be a great coach, but you got to promise me one thing. And I'm like, well, what's that? They're like, you got to coach and lead these girls as if they were your own daughters. And
Mhm.
here I am now 18 years later with 2 daughters and a son, and it's like, I always just wanted to be a coach like I never had,
Right.
and to be able to lead and create cultures that are building people to be contributors in society after they're done with their playing career. Find it interesting that you had some of those difficult circumstances at A West,
Mhm.
but then you walk into MSU for a coach that had a pretty darn good career prior to you showing up,
Right.
and you tap into probably everything you ever wanted. You wanted to have the academic experience, and you're walking around with a 4.0 GPA and representing the softball team and having success there. As I'm walking through that, when you finally got to college, was
Yeah.
it a resurrection per se or a breath of fresh air? Or did it come with its difficult challenges, and being the new person on campus, was that a challenge for you?
Mhm. My sophomore year of high school, between the club team I was on at that point and the high school team, I was over it. I wasn't loving the teams I was on. It was the coaches weren't great. So that 1 year of softball combined was really brutal. Didn't love it. Wanted to quit. Wasn't sure at that point. Ended up on a new club team, and that was a breath of fresh air and really got me back on the right track. And then when I got to college, COVID hit. Or I guess going right before college, COVID hit, so I was the 2020 graduate who didn't really get a graduation kind of thing.
Man.
So my freshman year was spent online in our student housing and not really getting to be on campus and experience all of that. I got very close with my teammates just in a whole nother capacity because we spent a lot of time together because we all had nothing to do during the days if because we didn't have class, and unless we had practice, we just had a lot of free time on our hands. I think showing up, it was got very close to my teammates, and there was still that aspect of, okay, you're the freshman, stay in your lane to an extent. I want to be here for these girls. I knew the type of they had a great season the year before I got there. It got cut short. People left or graduated and could come back. And it was just about, okay, well, this is my role now. Like, just throw me wherever you need me kind of thing, and I'll step into whatever role, or I'll try and fill the expectations and what people want out of me, so let's just do it. So, yeah, stepping into it was a weird freshman year, but I had some really good teammates and some really cool people who supported me through that and helped guide me through just a lot of weirdness, you could say.
For sure, and, um, being able to come out of that and listen, the path to success, I always chuckle because it's not just this linear path of straight up. It's like
Mhm.
these ups and downs and riding the waves of life. And whether it was your high school experience to having that moment your sophomore year to getting on campus, COVID hits, and then it sounds like an injury comes up too. I would love for
Yeah,
you to talk to the listeners about when you think of the lowest of lows in your career, because the amount of success that you've had, it's easy to see that on a piece of paper and be like, gosh, like this girl's perfect. I'm sure that you probably felt a pretty difficult time when you had that
yeah.
injury. Talk about the trenches for a little bit.
Freshman year, obviously, really well, All-American, which is crazy. Had no expectations of doing that, and it just worked out that way, and just, again, wanted to fall into my role as a freshman. I didn't You go in and there's no expectations for a freshman. I got to play very freely, just do my own thing in a sense, and obviously it worked out very well for me just because there was no pressure. Playing softball, COVID was starting to be out of sight, out of mind a little bit more, and then going to my sophomore year in my head, it's there's same softball player, same expectations, don't try and be the person you were last year. I knew how crazy that year was for me to have had, so the expectation was, well, don't do it again, and I think in my mind, I was telling myself that, but when it came to season actually starting, I put a lot of pressure on myself because I wanted to prove myself, like, "I'm the person I did this last year, I'm gonna do it again." Subconsciously, I was trying to tell myself, "It's fine, you don't have to be that person." So, actually, sophomore year, prior to tearing my ACL, was really tough for me because I was going back and forth in my own head about, okay, well, you don't have to be hitting over 500 to be successful, but if you're not hitting 500, then what are you doing? Why are things not the same as they were last year? And again, still had a great year, won Cheap World, but I was struggling more. My mental battle was prior to tearing my ACL that season. And then obviously tore my ACL about 2/3 of the way through season. And I don't want to say I would never have wished that on myself. I would never want that to happen again. But I think the timing of it was for a bigger purpose, if you will. I think it allowed me to take a step back. I got to quote enjoy the rest of the season from the sideline and cheering on my teammates and being in a different role than I'd ever been in before. And then got surgery. So my whole summer was spent rehabbing. And then fall of my junior year was where I started to get back into some stuff, but was still super limited, and that was tough. And then it was just the itch to get back, the itch to get back, but I took it one step at a time and do the small things right now, so it doesn't come back and bite me in the butt in 3 months down the road when I'm actually back and playing. So, it took a lot of patience, took a lot of time. It was tedious because going to PT 3 times a week was it just wears on you and you're like, "I just wanna be done with this. I just wanna be done with this." And I'm feeling good, but I just knew I'm not 100% yet. Just keep going. And so finally, when I got cleared 9 months later, I got cleared 2 days before we played at home. And I remember I went out we had bad weather, so we weren't able to be on the field at all that week. So my first time fully running bases and sliding was I went out 30 minutes before warm-ups and sliding and diving and making sure that felt good, and PT tells me, like, "This is your first weekend back, ease into it." So my coach didn't have me play defense really that weekend, but I think that first weekend, my first hit was a double, and I think my first 2 games, I had 6 hits, and all of them were for extra bases, and I think I had to slide into the base for every single one of those hits. And for me, I didn't go back, I didn't wear a brace, so it was a lot of just throw yourself back into it. The second you start overthinking, things are gonna happen, things aren't gonna go well, so just happy to be back and just kinda dove in head first because I didn't wanna have any regrets, and I didn't wanna re-injure myself because I was overthinking it and playing scared.
The amount of injuries that I keep hearing about, Shelby, especially on the girl side, I being a coach of female athletes, I really paid attention to the injury prevention side of being a coach and doing
Mhm.
dynamic warm-ups and stretching and
Oh,
yoga,
yeah.
alignment, because watching especially softball and seeing some of the movements, the game is pretty darn fast and have alignment and stability when you're trying to be
Mhm.
stable in unstable positions, injuries happen. And I saw a lot of hip tears. I saw a lot of shoulder
Yeah.
injuries. I saw a lot of knee
Yep.
tweaks and ACLs. So I'm curious, based off of your progression to that point as an athlete,
Mhm.
getting hurt, waking up in a hospital bed, did you
Yeah.
change your approach to how you took care of your body after that injury?
Honestly, for me personally, there wasn't a lot that I had to change. Going into my injury, I loved weightlifting. I was very
Yeah.
strong. I took pride. We did the dynamic warm-ups, we did the stretches, the band work, all the X, Ys, and Zs that are supposed to keep you safe and healthy kind of thing. And the way I tore my ACL, it goes back to the other argument of the injuries that happen on turf versus natural surfaces. We have a turf
Okay.
surface.
Yep.
I was wearing true metal spikes rather than turf shoes. I was in practice. I was just running down a fly ball in center field and my cleats got stuck in the turf and I did a funky movement and
Jeez.
I felt my knee pop and knew right away post-surgery, it was just obviously a lot more focus in keeping my strength in my leg and my knee specifically was very focused there, but for me, I didn't have to change a lot because I already took so much pride in how I worked out, and I was very strong, and my goal was to get back to that, which I did. But I made sure to maintain that and keep working to be stronger, and so for me, luckily, weightlifting was a passion of mine, and that was something in my mind I didn't thankfully have to change or adjust too much just because I was so passionate about being in the weight room, and if I'm gonna be in the weight room, I wanna be the strongest that I can, so that helped a lot.
The turf dilemma, you see it
Mhm.
in a lot of sports, especially in like football, getting hurt left and right based off of the surfaces. So, yeah, it's amazing. First of all, I tip my hat to you to wherever you decided to get in the weightlifting and the bands and injury prevention.
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot of kids ignore that. They want to have the performance on the playing field, but they don't want to do the little nuances, and it sounds like
Right.
that was something that was passionate for you. I'm curious, what
Mhm.
like, weightlifting, where did you find the ability to tap into that?
The year before college, we were doing all of our practice indoors at a place in Broomfield, and then I got to know the weight coach there and really liked him and his approach. So I started seeing him outside of our normal team practices and lifts because nothing against anything like that. You just don't get as much out of those, especially at that level. And for female sports, it seems more so. You just don't get as much out of some of those strength sessions as a team. So I started going to him outside, and then COVID hit, so that kinda derailed me for a few months, and then we were able to go back to that facility, and again, I would spend 2 hours in the gym just because what else am I supposed to do? Everything else is shut down, and so a few of my teammates and I would go. Our strength coach was amazing, and I worked out with him every single summer and every single break I had during college. So I stuck with him 5 years, and he was amazing and really just helped my progression go even when I was rehabbing for my ACL tear, and he would be my guy who we focus on the upper body, and we would balance it out from the PT. So, yeah, I would say he played a huge role in just me enjoying lifting, and then I had some really great strength coaches at Metro who helped keep that going also.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot when it comes to a lift that
Yeah,
young athletes, especially females, if you had to advise them on a lift that they need to be
yeah.
doing, what is that lift and why is it the most important one to you?
That's a tough one. I stand on, especially a female athlete in a sport like softball where you need your entire body, the traditional back squats and bench presses and lunges aren't necessarily what are going to get you strong. I did a lot of dumbbell work, a lot
Yep.
of single arm, single leg work, and just a lot of movement based stuff with med balls. So, if we're talking softball specific, I really liked a lot of the single arm, single leg dumbbell type of workouts,
Did you ever
floor
get into
press, those types
kettlebells?
of things. Yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
more so in the summer and stuff, kettlebell swings, other dynamic lifts with that, but yeah, it was really just a lot. You gotta do the movements, you gotta do the things that actually apply to your sport. Back squatting is great, it's not a bad thing, I did it, but it's about the smaller lifts in between what you're doing, the med balls, and even you don't always have to have a band or a weight to be productive. You can do a lot of movement things, especially arm care, that has nothing to do with any sort of equipment.
So you get to this point where you have this awakened moment where you're hurt and you're watching from the sidelines before your surgery
Mhm.
and you were there. I'm just curious, did it change your perspective of the importance of team and how to support your teammates, even if you're not supporting as an individual contributor on the field, but how much of that team aspect is important to you?
Obviously, team's always bigger than yourself, and what the team can accomplish is always going to be bigger than what you can accomplish, and I helped my team by performing the way I did, but they did great things without me. In my sophomore year after I tore my ACL, we had to go up to Grand Junction. Mesa was hosting, and we beat them twice on their home field and actually ended up advancing and playing some pretty tough games in the championship game. And of course, I was bummed out to be missing out on that, but just to see the way my team came together in those moments and the excitement and just the love for what it all had, that was more important than anything I ever accomplished. And so I think that really reminded me people stepped up. I wasn't the only one who was injured at that time. There were other people playing through things or who couldn't get a lot of playing time at that tournament. And so it was just about throwing ourselves into the people who were on the field and being that 10th person out there with them, even though we were in the dugout. And especially for me, I couldn't do anything about it. But I became really close friends with one of our other outfielders who actually ended up replacing me when I got hurt. And I just
Okay.
threw myself into her because I wanted her to be as successful as possible. And she went in and she dominated. And I think that was really cool to see. So finding that outlet through another person and supporting them as best as I could helped get me through those months where I couldn't do anything.
Mentioned at one point in an article that I came across
Yeah.
that you would give all of your individual awards for a national championship with your team. What
Yeah.
prompted you to say that? Especially in the world of tennis, there's a lot of individual accolades, and you're the only person out there when you're playing singles, so it's all about you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then it's weird because then it's about a team, but it's still about you on the court, and then you create a team score when you go to college. It's super weird,
Yeah.
but your
Yeah.
ability to have that perspective of team focus, national championship, where did that come
Mhm.
from?
Again, it's those big wins, those close wins, getting to dominate with your teammates. It's so much fun, and coming up clutch in a big game and getting that walk-off win is so awesome. And of course, that recognition and those are awards are crazy. But for me, it's we had a game my senior year. We were in Texas and playing a bunch of Lone Star Conference teams, and it's a very talented conference. And if we want any hope of going to regionals ourselves, we have to beat those teams.
Mhm.
So we lost our season opener to Washburn from Kansas. It was a close one, but we didn't perform as well as we would have liked. And then our next game right after that was against the fifth ranked team in the nation at that point, Tyler, Texas. And they had been in the World Series last 3 or 4 years. They were
Oh,
still
wow.
chasing that first title, and we knew they were going to be tough. And I don't want to say we didn't expect to win, but we just want to go out there and have a good game because why not? And if we won, that would be great. But I don't think the expectation that we'd win would be there. We were very talented, but it was, well, let's see what we can do. So we got out there and we did beat them, and we held them scoreless, and we beat them 2-0. And just the excitement all of us contributed and the things we all did in that game, it was so much fun, and that was probably one of my favorite highlights for my entire college career was that game and how fun it was to be surrounded by teammates who were doing cool things and how everybody just came together and we pulled it out. Tyler went on and won the national championship
Wow.
that season, and unfortunately, we didn't even make regionals. Got the short end of a stick there, but I think just those moments and watching teams win on we see these teams win on TV, and it's just like, what a cool feeling would that have been, and to do it with the people you spend more time with these people in college than you do with your own family, so how cool to go out on top and get to live in those moments with those people and see it all come together for every single person on the team.
The ability to be that selfless, to want to do things together in unison with others is pretty cool. That's admirable traits that you carry, and you've carried that also too into advocacy work and what you're doing off the playing field. I remember one of the most fruitful things I was able to experience in my life was after college. I got to work with the Special Olympics. I
Yeah,
was teaching serves to a couple guys that had cerebral palsy and couldn't lift their arms above their head, just no shoulder
mhm,
mobility. And I remember having
right,
like a pretty crappy day before I showed up to the tennis courts, and I get there and I watch them and I'm like, gosh, like my bad day really isn't so bad. Right. There was
right.
a big
Yep,
perspective shift that I had, but I'd love for you to talk about some of the work you've done off the field and what
mhm.
compels you to want to give back to your community the way that you have.
Yeah, so I would say one of my biggest, factors there. My cousin has cerebral palsy, actually, so that is why the Miracle League is so
Mm.
important to me. And so, for those of you who don't know, the Miracle League is a nonprofit organization that it's pretty much a softball league for people with physical and intellectual disabilities and of all different types of disabilities and levels and abilities. And so I had volunteered with her organization even prior to Metro and had gone to her games and supported her, and then got to Metro and we support them. And my junior year, we got to bring them out to our fields and they got to play on our fields under the lights, and we got to be there with our baseball team and kind of play with them, if you will. And so, yeah, so those types of things have always been near and dear to me just because of the personal connection. We just hear about the people in your community, and you could live in the wealthiest community, the best area ever, and you might not know it, but your neighbor next door might not have enough money for food. And a lot of the work we did was to support the people who are sick or don't have the money to provide for themselves, or just at the end of the day, we were better off than them, and try to give them some sort of hope or light in their life because that was, in my opinion, the least we could do. We had the time, we had the resources, the ability, so why not throw ourselves into some of that work and give back to the other people in our communities who don't have what we have.
Yeah, it's you learn to appreciate those types of things either by having it directly impact you long before you give back, as you've mentioned with a family member. Uh, I think it's so important. You never want anyone to experience hardship or a
Right.
disability, or you don't wish that upon anyone. But some of the growth that comes from those adverse moments or difficult circumstances, some of the strongest willed people I've met in my life
Oh,
are
yeah, my
folks that,
cousin
yeah.
yeah. My cousin's probably the happiest person you would ever meet, and you just walk into a room, and she's so excited to see everybody and just wants to give everybody a hug and say hi, and my dad especially is her uncle, and, oh, you would think he's just the best person in the world. He could just walk into a room, and she loses her mind because she's so excited to see him, and, yeah, just getting to see that, it's so cool and such a unique experience that, I mean, not a lot of people get. It just gives you a different perspective on, like you said, like, "Oh, my bad day really isn't that bad of a day, and that thing I was mad about early, like, why did that even me?"
Well, you definitely have a unique perspective, Shelby, because you overcome some adversity, you have the injury, you bounce back, become the team player, do the stuff in the community, ultimately you graduate. And now you're seeing it from the lens of administration and the time that you're spending utilizing that sport management degree. Love for you to chat about women's sports, Title IX, equality, all of the things that allow college sports to be what they are when it comes to women's
Yeah.
sports and it's gaining traction. What do you feel are some of the biggest areas that maybe still need a little bit of progress? And how do you envision from the administrative role that you've been encompassed in, where can we make things better for college sports?
Yeah, I think, obviously, in the last few years, women's sports have taken off on a level they never had before. They call it the whole Caitlin Clark effect, and just especially for women's basketball specifically, how exciting that was and how people were really interested in that aspect of sports for the first time ever. I think in my role, unfortunately, I don't get a lot of interaction with the athletes, which is hard, and I'm not in a role where I get to be that big support person for them, but I think it comes down to every athlete deserves to have an against that means something to them and is very special for them, and I'm a marketing lead for a men's wrestling team, and obviously, we don't have a women's wrestling team right now, and that's a sport that's up and coming as well, but I think it's just about for those people who get to support the athletes in that role, and it makes a difference when you have a department that cares about you and they go above and beyond to make every little thing as special as possible. I got that treatment, if you will, at Metro. The way we have a very small department there, but
Yep.
just the way our administration and our staff went above and beyond for every athlete on every team was really special. That's something I want to try and do for the athletes at UNC or wherever at any school I end up with, is because female sports in particular, we get overlooked in. It's a shift in culture and trying to make that exciting and just in at least in Greeley, it's about get people to these events, get younger athletes to these events, get them hyped up and show them how cool this really is and how impactful it can be. And when you start to make that impact, especially to people in the community, I think that's what's really important. UNC, we're never going to pack a stadium for a women's basketball game of 50,000 people. We just don't have the capacity for it. But in a town and for a school like us, that's not as realistic as an Iowa or a Power Five. But if we can get 30 teams from down the road and we can get their youth soccer team to our soccer game, that's super influential and impactful for them. And I think that's something I want to do more of, is just community involvement and getting our athletes out into the community and having them make an impact on the next generation.
The ability to see at least opportunities for it to improve and that you can be an impact for it. I understand it's probably tough not having direct access to the athletes sometimes, but some of the
Yeah.
decisions you're making to helping the wrestling program. I know women's wrestling is definitely starting to get some legs, so I hope that it's starting to become as popular as something like flag football. Girls flag football is a
Right.
huge high school sport now. Arvada West was actually pretty
Yes.
darn good, made it to the final and lost a
Yeah.
tough one to Vista, but
Yep.
nonetheless, I think it's really neat that you're a part of that impact. It makes me think again about your career.
Definitely.
The icing on the cake for your individual accolade was you're sitting in Colorado Springs back in July and you're becoming one of the very few, which is a RMAC Women of the Year inductee. I'd love for you to walk the listeners through what did that moment mean to you? And did you have to give a speech? And maybe what'd you say when you received that
Yeah.
award?
We were down there, like you said, it was for the Hall of Fame induction and award ceremony, and I was named as the RMAC Woman of the Year. They do Man and Woman of the Year and then Academic Man and Woman of the Year. So we all went down for the banquet and we sat on a stage together with our commissioner and just cut our journeys to all those types of things. So I think sitting on that stage and sharing more of my story, I think it was to look back, and at that point, that was the first time, like, really reflecting on what my career was and how far I've come is when it hit me is, "Okay, this is sad, this is really over, but exciting because of what I get to do next in my journey." For me, people ask, "Oh, do you miss it? Do you miss playing?" And I think a part of me, obviously, it's sad not to be there and be competing and doing what I love and what I'm good at, but for me, I don't have regrets, and I'm not sad because it's over. I'm just looking forward to what's next and how I can make an impact moving into the future. What can I do that will mean something to somebody, and how can I be impactful in that regard?
When you were in that moment and you looked out into the audience receiving the Woman of the Year award,
Mhm.
who in the audience were you happy to see because you knew that they were proud of you? Is there someone that
Yeah.
sticks out?
My parents, I would have had more family there, but timing and kinda last minute stuff didn't work out. But definitely my parents. They have always been very supportive of me and my 2 sisters. I'm the middle of 3 girls, and my older sister actually played softball. We're 2 years apart, and she played softball at a Colorado school of mine. Both of them were there for us. It didn't matter where we were playing. We could be across the world, and they would find a way to come watch us. Just being able to have support like that, not a lot of people get that kind of support and love always, unfortunately. So I think that was just a moment of how much they've always done for me and just really how proud they are to see me where I am, but truthfully, obviously, to be there if it wasn't for them. To see my parents out there and see how excited they were for me at the same point, it was I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am today without their support and then just how far they helped along through the bumps in the road and the crazy things life throws at you. Having my parents there is just very special and something that I'm fortunate to have had.
Shelby, I got one more for you.
Yeah.
The reflection piece. Let's say you accept that award down in Colorado Springs and you're driving back up the road to Greeley, and somehow, some way, you come across a softball field and you watch this girl in the outfield absolutely eat it on turf because they were wearing the wrong cleats. And you decide to pull over and go sit next to that person on the bench that thinks they might have blown their knee. Pretty good softball player, maybe didn't love their coach, trying to figure out what's next. And you had a moment to encourage them based off
Yeah.
of everything that in your young life and coming out of college and knowing your career. I'd love for you to share with the
Mhm.
listeners, how would you encourage that softball player to become the strongest version of themselves?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's all about, passion, and I'm a firm believer if you don't love where you are or what you're doing or how something's going, then do something to change it. And obviously that's easier said than done, and there's circumstances and situations where it's not that easy to differ it. But for me, it's if of something and you're truly passionate, then keep at it. You'll reach a point where you feel good about what you're doing. And that point of success is going to be different between me, between you, between your teammates, your friends, your family. It's not about what the people on the field are doing. It's about you and what you can do and what you care about. If you want to get back out there, and if this is your passion, then find something that brings you joy when you can't be on the field and playing. It's about finding those things in your life that mean the most to you, make you the most excited, make you want to get up and out of bed every day. What is it that really drives you? Because yeah, softball is great, but it's not our for any athlete. It's not our entire world. And kind of throw yourself in, and the people still matter to you. I think it's just about going and enjoying where you're at in life. And if you're not happy, change it to make yourself happy. And yeah, easier said than done, but just there's always going to be people out there who support you and want the best for you, and surround yourself with those people and just make an effort to better your situation, and don't let an injury get the best of you, because it's not going to be the end of the world and you will bounce back. It might not always look the same, or it might not feel the same or be the same, but you will be fine. Take it day by day. Move on.
Simple but powerful. And again, I love what you're doing in the community. Would you please share with the listeners some of the organizations, as you've mentioned earlier, that you've worked with, how
Yeah.
we can find them, how we can support as a BTB community?
Yeah, obviously the one that I mentioned that is near and dear to my heart is the Miracle League of Denver. They're located in the Denver area, accept donations, just volunteer support. Anything you
Awesome.
can do is obviously huge to them. Food for Thought is one that's on MSU Denver's campus. They provide meals for kids whose families can't afford meals for the weekends in school to get food. So you can donate tiny, or that was something I did a lot of time doing. Project Angel Heart was another organization I spent a lot of time with. They have a variety of roles for volunteering. It could be something as having your kids decorate paper bags. The purpose of Project Angel Heart is for people who are going through very severe and terminal illnesses and they can't cook or provide for themselves. And this organization provides them meals packaged in paper bags. So you can decorate a paper bag to just make somebody happy. You can help cook meals, again, donate, provide food, those types of things. Yeah, lots of different organizations. Or it could be as simple as writing cards and making up means. That's just as impactful as anything else. So yeah, lots of ways, always ways and time to help Eddie's life.
Perfect. I will make sure to leave that information in the podcast notes. All American, RMAC Woman of the Year, incredible career, Shelby. Definitely keep up the good work on the admin side. I hope you get to tap into some coaching as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure to share your story on the BTB project. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and yeah, just go out there and do what makes you happy.
Such an awesome conversation with Shelby Robb. There were several takeaways that I had, realizing that no matter how much success you have as an individual, that it's really about the support system and the people around you that matter the most. Shelby has, quite frankly, almost every accolade you can think of. But for her to be able to want to take all of that away and just have a moment with her team to where they could potentially have a national championship or team success just shows that being selfless, doing everything you can to be an impact for your team, but more importantly, pointing it back at the group as a whole was certainly a takeaway I had from the episode. And secondly, was Shelby's ability to look outside of athletics, her volunteer work, knowing that she had family members that were impacted by disability and wanting to find ways to make an impact. All of that work off the playing field was truly inspirational. Listen, if this BTB episode impacted you, do me a favor and like and subscribe to the BTB Project. Better yet, send this message to a family member, friend, or colleague and tell them why Shelby's story impacted you. It's this BTB community and doing life together is what allows us to change the world, to be an impact, and to truly fulfill that impossible is nothing. As always, I'm proud of each and every one of you. And until next time, take care.
You're told I'll be a harder temptation.